Seems like every human being really didn't sleep much last night.
Wink.
It's got some move.
Hey everybody, welcome to our July Devstream. I cannot believe it's July already. I am Jay Frechette, Community Manager here at Respawn, and joining me, my partner in crime, our Queen Regent, Protector of the Realm, as I like to call her, of our social channels for Play Apex, the one and only Alex Ackerman.
Hello, my friends. Partner in quarantine crime?
Yeah.
I feel like maybe that's where you're going. I like it.
That is true. Really excited to have you here. We're doing something a little bit different this month with the Devstream. We're going to do some multiple segments. We have a lot of exciting things, coming to Apex this year. We're not going to quite get into too many details yet, so we're not going to have a whole lot of news or big changes, but what we are going to have is Alex and I are going to walk through some of the cool things to be looking forward to this month, as well as requested by the community. Earlier this week, I had a chance to sit down and talk with some folks from our audio team where we talked a little bit behind the scenes about making the music and themes. For the game, we're going to have an ALGS update from our Summer Circuit series with John Nelson, our commissioner. And last but not least, we will finish things off with Alex and our writers as you guys celebrate and look through some of your favorite things that you saw during our community's hashtag 31 Days of Apex.
Yes.
That they've been doing, which is just incredible. It'll be really, really exciting. So first off, let's get to some of the news stuff. We announced at EA Play that Apex is coming to Steam this year, which is really, really exciting. And we got a reveal of some special things that are going to be available for players when that launches. Alex, why don't you show us what we got?
Yes, absolutely. So we have partnered with Steam to create 3 gun charms that are based off of the various Valve IPs. Pretty amazing stuff. We have the Head Crab Octane, the Portal Potato, which I think is probably the most fantastic thing I've ever seen. And then we also have the Portal Cube with our sweet little baby Watson, which is just so stinking cute. But these charms are going to be available when we launch on Steam for all players who log in. It's just a login to claim type scenario. They are available for a limited time. So once we get closer to when we will be launching on Steam, we'll be putting out some more information on when exactly those timelines fall under. But in the meantime, you can wish list Apex on Steam and follow Apex Legends on Steam just to kind of stay up to date with all the latest information, because we'll be posting that there.
Awesome. I really love too, like how well the artists kind of put the appropriate characters in the situations. Octane with the head crab scenes,
Yeah.
and then Watson with the companion cube. We also have another Twitch Prime exclusive skin for those who link their accounts from Twitch Prime members. We've been doing these for a while. These skins have been absolutely amazing. Next up is our man Pathfinder, right?
Yes, and it is Swimming Buddy Pathfinder, which I think is just so fitting for the summer. He has his little floaty devices, it kind of looks like, on his arms, which I totally feel like Pathfinder would be the person who goes into the pool with floaty, like arm floaties on. So it's just really adorable, and I think a lot of fun for the summer.
So that's available right now, and it's going to be available up until August 14th. So make sure if you haven't yet, get into the game, link your accounts, and grab your Swimming Buddy. And then last but not least, this is definitely also something very exciting that we have coming, our Summer of Plunder sale.
Yeah, buddy.
Which I think there's going to be a few items in there players are going to be really happy to see there.
Yes, so we have a couple of bundles that are going to be available during the summer sale. Some that include a Loba unlock. So you actually unlock Loba as a legend, and then also some goodies for her as well. But then we have other bundles that include the famed Voidwalker Wraith skin, which will be making a return. Very excited for that one. And then also we have some bundles that focus on Apex packs specifically and kind of add a couple extra to the mix just to kind of make it worth your while. So a lot of really, really cool stuff coming to this summer sale for sure.
Yeah, it's cool to see us getting creative with the different ways that we're offering sort of these bundles and packages, and it's neat to see them like themed in different ways too. So for players, we're just really looking forward to hearing your feedback. And for those of you who missed your chance to get the Voidwalker, here you go. So, that's pretty much what we got for the news. Alex, though, we're going to be having you again towards the end of the show. Walking our writers through our 31 Days of Apex would be really awesome, so stay tuned for that. But coming up next, we have our ALGS update with John Nelson. Let's take a look. Hey, everybody. Welcome to kind of our first ALGS recap segment. This is going to be really exciting. With me this week is John Nelson, our commissioner for the ALGS here on the team. You guys have been super, super busy. We've had a lot of exciting stuff going on with the summer circuit. Let's kick things off, John, by just breaking down for us, what is the summer circuit?
Cool. Thanks, Jay. The Summer Circuit is a collection of online tournaments within the Apex Legends Global Series. It runs from June through September and offers $500,000 in prize money. Through the first 5 months of the ALGS, there have been a lot of online tournaments for 8 small regions. But with the Summer Circuit, we've combined those small regions into 4 super regions. So we've paired Europe with Middle East and Africa, North America with South America, Greater Southeast Asia with Australia and New Zealand, and Japan with Korea, so that we can see what happens when the best of each region come together to compete.
So we've run just over this last week, and we've done 2, right, of the super regionals now within the circuit. Can you kind of like quickly recap for us so far what you guys have seen happen? Have there been any surprises that you didn't expect?
Yeah, sure. So through the first 2 weeks of the Summer Circuit, over 1,000 teams have competed from around the world. And 21 have qualified for their respective super regional playoff. And in total, so far, $56,000 has been awarded. In the Americas super regionals, teams from the United States came out on top in both weeks. In the EMEA super regional, the winners have come from Denmark, Russia, the Ukraine, and the United Kingdom. In APAC North, teams from Japan have narrowly defeated teams from Korea in each of the first 2 weeks. And in APAC South, a team from Australia won in week 1, but in week 2, it was a team from Hong Kong that came out on top.
Wow, so you see kind of like, people from all around kind of like flexing a bit, like, and kind of dominating in their different areas for sure.
Totally. Yeah, it's been really fun to watch just the level of talent that there is all around the world.
John, one of the things I'm interested in is, there's been a lot of great plays, a lot of great moments in, these tournaments that we've been having. It's incredible to watch the level of play that these players operate at. Has there been any moments for you that really stood out in the Summer Circuit?
Definitely one in particular. In Super Regional Week 1 for APAC North, Japanese team Detonator put up 34 points in Game 5, the final game of that series, to win the Super Regional by 2 points.
Oh, wow.
So they put up one of the biggest performances I've ever seen in a single game from one team, 22 kills in first place to, come from behind to win that one.
Time to do it. Wow.
Yeah, super clutch.
That's awesome. So John, for you, watching these Summer Circuits and seeing these players that are just operating at this incredible level and all the new things, strategies and meta that they're coming up with, has there been any moments that really stood out to you watching these Summer Circuits so far?
Yeah, definitely one in particular in the Americas Super Regional of Week 1, to see Nicewig, who is a controller player, also, a community fan favorite, to see he and his team come out on top in first place was really cool to see.
So you guys are still going. We're not done yet, right? So, what are the next events coming up in the Summer Circuit that players should be looking forward to?
Sure. This weekend is Summer Circuit Week 3, where we'll see teams again from all around the world try to qualify for the playoffs. But also, if you missed your chance to sign up, registration for Summer Circuit Week 4 opens on Tuesday. And after that is the last chance qualifier. Like that name implies, it's the 5th week of the Summer Circuit, in which the last qualification opportunity for teams that haven't yet punched their ticket to the playoffs. So it'll be fun to watch that competition, where we get to see how up-and-coming teams perform, not only under the pressure of their final opportunity to qualify, but also how they perform when the likes of TSM, Gambit Esports, Detonator, and Invictus Gaming are absent because they've already qualified.
That is exciting. I always love the sort of dark horse players that can come in, and shout out to the broadcast teams and the casters. And speaking of which, with these coming up, our last question for you, where should folks be tuning in to watch this stuff?
The Summer Circuit is streamed live on twitch.tv/playapex and youtube.com/playapexcompete. And the Play Apex Compete YouTube channel is also a great spot for all of the Summer Circuit and ALGS videos, in case you can't catch the action live, or you want to catch up on all the competition that happened so far.
Awesome. Well, John, appreciate you guys are super busy right now, and all of this challenge here of like working remote. Appreciate you letting me pop in for a little bit to get an update on what you guys got going on. I'm excited to watch circuit number 3 coming up.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
Yeah, you bet. All right, next up, folks, don't go anywhere. We are going to be having an interview with some of the folks on our audio team about the music behind Apex Legends. Stay tuned. Here we are. This is a very special segment I'm really excited to do. We had heard from players after the last Devstream. It'd be really cool to talk about a lot of the awesome music that has been in Apex and that we've been adding to with each new season of the new themes, the new legends. So with me, I have 2 very, very special guests. First off, Barton, composer. I don't even know where to start. With your background, you have been working in TV, films, and games for like well over a decade.
Only two now. Eesh.
Including
Getting old.
composer for Titanfall 1, Titanfall 2, and for Apex Legends, as well as a ton of original music you did for the score for Jedi Fallen Order. I believe you told me yesterday 8 to 9 hours worth of music. You had
Last year, yeah. The 2019 was a little bit busy.
That is
You had a little bit of work to do.
absolutely
Just a bit.
Absolutely insane. We're gonna have some fun stuff to talk about. And also Erik Kraber, our senior audio director, also been with us since Titanfall 1, Titanfall 2. You have worked on Battlefield, Medal of Honor, Command and Conquer, like huge experience of working in audio in games as well. And for those at home that are probably already putting the connective tissue together, the namesake of the Kraber sniper rifle in the game. I believe the mythology is you had in a playtest, you performed so well with it that we had to name it after you. I believe that's that canon.
If
Right?
that were only the case, I'm so terrible with sniper rifles.
Well, thank you for guys for being willing to come in and talk to us a little bit and go a little bit behind the scenes on the work that you folks are doing with Apex, specifically like around the music. And where I want to start, both of you, are architects behind, the sound and music with the Titanfall franchise going all the way back to Titanfall 1. And as we were doing something brand new within this existing universe of Titanfall, where did you guys start in the approach to think about, with this new kind of game and the characters and everything, how you wanted this game to sort of sound and the vibe? Like, how did you guys start working together?
That's a really good question. I think it was an interesting one because I think when we started talking about Apex originally, it became this. I mean, one of our biggest focuses was what is music in a battle royale game? Like, even forgetting for a second that it's even part of the Titanfall universe, the function of what we're trying to do is very different to a single player story. So obviously with the campaign in Titanfall 2, that was something we approached in a very linear way. I was trying to make you feel like this is like a playable movie. It's an arc. The story, is sort of forever driving forward. And so taking a look at Apex the first time was sort of clear that this was not anything like that. There's in no way is it like that. And then you start to think about what places can you even put music, because fundamentally we have a battlefield where you often really want no music at all. I mean, certainly most of the round. And it's interesting, the very first experiments we were doing, we had the drop music would extend, like 5-10 seconds into you'd hit the ground, and maybe and literally we had examples of people like hitting the ground, immediately running into a firefight, and the music actually just the tail end of just the quietest little thing, it's just some little percussive thing. Oh, I thought I heard footsteps behind me, and like I died. And so it became this exercise in, okay, well, we can only put music in these particular places. What are we trying to do with it? Are we trying to, set the tone? Are we trying to, make you want to, when you end a match, come back into a new match, and sort of setting the vibe and setting the tonal sort of shape of everything that the game is, but without impeding anyone's ability to play it. So, I mean, I think that was the biggest difference for me. It was like nothing I'd ever really thought about before.
Yeah, that was definitely the big part of the challenge, was trying to, having come off of, Titanfall 2, where there was so much emotion that we could kind of paint with every moment of your experience, right? That we came fresh off of that to an experience where essentially the music really needed to stay out of the way with all of the gameplay. But we really wanted to make sure that charging into a battle really felt like something dramatic and emotional. And I think Steven's early work on that just really helped solidify that feeling that when you get in there and you do the drop, you really feel this excitement, you losing your stomach as you're flying down onto the battlefield ready to charge in, and you have your adrenaline's rushing at that point a lot because the music is helping kind of support that whole moment going into the game.
We had another big thing, I think, when we were working on the very first suite of music, as we call it, where each character and the main theme has a suite. It's a set of modules that we know fit into the places that they go. Which was the first time we did that. I think one of my biggest concerns was this was going to be something that you were potentially hearing many times over. And also, my second biggest concern was the fact that for most people, unless you're on the winning team, for most people, you've sort of lost and you're coming back into it. Whatever piece of music where we put there would almost have this sort of Pavlovian response of it being the you suck music. And there's this thing of like, oh, actually what we want you to do is it's almost like a feeling of positivity. We're like, okay, get back in there and try again. That was a lot of what the original suite of music was about. Was sort of, we were trying to create something that was positive, was feeling upbeat. It didn't want to feel too dark, too down. And it also, a lot of Titanfall 2 was pretty dark. So it was, kind of had to jettison that and say, okay, well, what's uplifting? What's going to get you pumped to get back into the next round? So that was the sort of the genesis of first original theme suite.
Was there any particular music you guys were listening to at the time that sort of was like, ooh, this is kind of the vibe I'm going for? Or any particular inspirations that kind of kicked it off for you to get that vibe that you wanted?
Kind of, there needed to be some bridge to the Titanfall palette, right? That we established something there. It's still in the universe. Steven had really established that feeling, but we also, like you were saying, we wanted that sense of positivity. We knew we wanted it to be more electronic. I think something that's also different about the tone of it is that in some cases it's almost like writing a mini EP more so than writing a score, where when we do the music for each of the different legends, we're trying to think about how do we keep shaking up the theme, and how do we even refer to things as bridges and verses and choruses, which aren't really terms you use for music that you would write for an album, popular music, more so than you'd use for score. Because score, there's when you're doing it against picture, there's no real sense of like, this is when the chorus happens. So I know that we've had to kind of shift our thinking to start having more popular music be influenced.
Well, I think the biggest thing tonally, I remember I sort of was looking back to a lot of things where I was like, what gives me the feeling that I want to have from this? And a lot of the music that kind of ticked that box, but was not right per se for what we were doing, but like ticked the box in terms of it hit that sense of feeling was I was looking at a lot of like 1990s sort of like big beat EDM stuff where it's big rises, big sort of almost, there's a lot of progressive house stuff where it's like big rises to a sort of, and then sort of huge, and there was a sort of a kind of late 90s early 2000s sort of symphonic EDM kind of stuff, like artists like Hybrid, little bit of Fatboy Slim, little bit of Chemical Brothers also went there a little bit. So I was thinking about a lot of that whilst not necessarily going sort of specifically there, but there's definitely sort of things that are inspired by that. There's, we have orchestral elements, but I'm putting whopping great filter sweeps on them like you would do, in a big beat record or something like that. So that was very much the feel. It was like, what gives you that feeling of euphoria? Also, I think a big reference that I had was, less dark than this, but like a lot of shoegaze, like late 90s, early 2000s shoegaze music, sort of just has that feeling of like a wall of sound and power, and it just sort of, it's just there and present and fills the whole space. And so for me, that it was those combination of those two things, bleeding a little bit of the Titanfall theme in the very first suite. There's the militia theme appears in the very first theme suite towards the end, and then particularly that one little synth thing, which was one of those things where I totally didn't know we had something awesome until we've lived with it now, and now we can't. It's everywhere.
Well, you did. I remember you had done that in the first one of the early passes.
It was on the first. I was on the first pass,
and I was just like, this should be in everything. Like this should be, these 4 notes should be the thing that we have as the main theme and all of the stuff. And now we probably put it in way too much. But it has become iconic. But I don't think when you originally wrote that, I don't think that wasn't the goal. Like you didn't write those 4 notes like this is the theme of Apex. It just was. It was something that came organically out of the piece that you had written. And we fell in love with it, and we just said, God, that it feels different. It has the right tone, and it felt like it was really catchy and memorable, and something that could be put against so many different orchestrations and tempos and everything, and it would still hold up. Be something that people could recognize.
I think you mentioned the themes with this different legends. Where did that start as an idea? Was that something you guys thought of from this like very beginning? Like we're going to make the main theme, but over seasons and when we introduce new characters, we'll have new themes for them. Did that happen more organically? And then talk a little about like your inspirations, like what kind of sounds you're combining or how you approach each individual legend.
I think we initially really wanted to do it for, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Stephen, but I think we wanted to do it for individual legends. And then there was a period of time where we felt like we may not be able to get to that. That almost seemed like too much of a stretch. And I think the original idea was actually that we wanted to actually create different melodic themes for every single character. So it wasn't, and that's I think where it felt like it was going to be particularly challenging, is coming up with some, you know, motifs, some set of, you know, 4, 5, 6 notes that felt like this really symbolizes this character. So I think over discussions over time, it felt more like it was attitude shifts, tempo shifts, changes to the orchestration, totally different inspirations in terms of like the cultures that would inspire the songs for each of the different characters, and then pop culture references of things that were like, you know, what would these legends listen to? What would be playing on their headphones before they jump into a match? Like, what's the thing that would get them pumped? And I think from that, we've been able to come up with some cool combinations and, you know, synthesizing of different ideas and instrumentation and influences to kind of create each of them. But Stephen, you can probably speak more to that.
I think absolutely. I mean, I think when we first started playing with a couple of the characters, I think we tested a few. We were like, okay, let's, and I've got a feeling, if I remember right, I think Pathfinder was the one I did first.
Yeah, that one was amazing. I love that one right off the bat. I'm like, oh my god!
I think once we did a couple, we were like, this could work, and it sort of. And I think once also because we had a very clear sort of boxes. Character select is always at 120 BPM because of the nature of how it has to hit the cuts between each legend's selection moment on the screen. So I sort of have like a kind of architecture that I can put things into, and I know that the architecture doesn't change, but the what's in it does. So I think once we did Pathfinder, I think we were then like, okay, well, this is going to work, and then it was largely about just sort of finding what influences and what sounds. And Pathfinder was, for example, I mean, a lot of the references are things where there's usually two elements to it. One is there'll be some random thing that you might not necessarily know that it's riffing off a certain thing. Pathfinder is basically a Beck track with way more electronics in it than he would probably go for. Although actually I think his last record was pretty electronic. But so there's that side of it where usually it's just something I'm screwing around with, which I kind of amuses me. Or the sort of ethnicity of it, sort of, so, you know, a character that's more like, you know, Loba, you know, we were looking for something that really spoke to her character and her origin story and her you know, everything that we'd already seen in the trailer about her, finding sort of sounds that felt sort of legitimate for that. And I think one of the things that we've always tried to do on all of the Respawn games, I think even Star Wars a little bit with this, I mean, this was our ethos there, was when you're using those kinds of elements, you want them to feel real, you want them to feel legitimate. So you don't want it to feel like sort of a shoehorned in, oh, I'm just going to take the Apex theme and put, like, for Christmas, we're not just going to take the Apex theme and put sleigh bells on it. That's the sort of lame, kind of easy way of doing it. Both the Mirage Voyage, doing some, like, LMFAO track, basically sort of, you know, that he triggers, that's 1000% feels like it could be one of those kind of tracks, or the Christmas lobby music where it's like the backing of a Sinatra track, and it's but for that, where instead of, you know, we literally recorded that in Nashville with a big band, you know, it's as legit as you could get. And so I think that's always been our approach to it, is like, you know, if we're going to do it, we'll do it well.
Do you guys have a personal favorite of the themes that you've done so far?
Well, Pathfinder definitely is near and dear, so that would probably be at the top. But I do really like the Loba's Pass, the take on it, where, you know, we had the combination of Beyonce, where we kind of wanted this very sort of pop, modern, but powerful, strong woman, but also have something that almost has a high-end kind of fashion feel to it, but also all the, you know, South American kind of influences and all of it. I think that one just turned out great.
I mean, I think the most fun to record was Christmas, just because it was so absurd, and Steve knows that president of music of EA, sort of, who will come in occasionally to the sessions because he's in Nashville, and he walked in and was sort of had this sort of expression of like, what the hell are you doing? I thought this was Apex. This is why you've got a big band in here and like this swing band thing going on. So that was kind of fun. I've been quite partial to Revenants, I think, just because I think it sort of was one of those ones where it sort of turned out the kind of the way we wanted it to, and it was something like Loba. I mean, I was driving for lunch just out by Respawn. I pulled up at a light and I had my windows down, and there was a Cadillac pulls up alongside, and they were playing Drunk in Love on like ridiculous volume, and it was one of those sort of cars where they literally, you could only hear the bass, and it was just, but you could feel the bass, and I was like, that's cool, that's Loba, because it was just that sort of feel, the sub bass hits you, and I was like, if we could do that, that would be cool. And there's often things where we'll try something out and be like, nah, that wasn't a great idea. But that's having that sort of ability to be able to try stuff out and play with it is fun, because we have a good amount of time to do it as well. So it's great.
Yeah, I mean, the fun part for me now is having worked so long now with Steven is that a lot of the time my direction is very little. Usually it feels like with maybe every other legend there's an email that comes by or a message that's like, how far should we push this? And I say,
yeah,
push it as far as you want, and then we'll pull it back. Let's start going as far outside as possible, and then if it's not right, then we'll keep pulling it back, but never want to stop the creative process.
Very, very cool. Speaking of the process, we've had some challenges this year in the process with COVID, and all of us have been working from home for months, and this all affects all of us in our different disciplines, affects us different ways. Especially affects you guys. Stephen, you mentioning like doing the holiday theme was, you did that with a live orchestra, with an actual band and instruments. How has your process sort of changed, and how you guys, being creative around the ways you're kind of working around it?
It's changed a lot in some ways, and then in other ways it hasn't. I mean, I'm currently in my spare bedroom with the mattress pushed up against the wall, and that's it's very much a sort of temporary setup. But I've got five computers heating up our spare bathroom, literally, which has become my machine room. That's so our electricity bill went up, but that was about it, really. But yeah, it was. I think the biggest thing was probably. The hardest thing was the Fortune's Favor piece. That suite, we'd had an idea, I think, as early as probably like it was December or January where we'd sort of first talked about it, and it was before this
that we kind of knew we're gonna go for big orchestra on this piece.
Yeah, we were like this is going to be Indiana Jones taken up to 11, and like with Apex production values, we're going to make it sound like huge. And so we knew we wanted to do this, and that was very much the thing. And then obviously we get a call where we're certainly not allowed to put 90 musicians in a room together, which is what we would usually do for something like that. And so that one was a little insane, where we literally had individual musicians coming in and recording in a studio in Nashville. They were literally sanitizing the studio between musicians. And then I get this session they would send with literally every single player split out. So it's, flute 1, flute 2, flute 3, oboe 1, oboe 2, oboe 3, all the way down through all the brass. And, so we ended up with this massive session, and sort of, kudos to Steve Genowick, who mixes all the music for us, because we're also mixing in 7.1 surround. So, usually that kind of thing is created, the surround channels are created in the room. There's, microphones are there for creating those side and rear channels, for those people who have 7.1 setups. But that didn't happen, so we had to recreate all of that artificially. And it took him a few more days than it would have usually taken him, but I think the results turned out pretty good. Yeah, that's definitely not the way we usually record something like that. But
yeah, it ended up being, what was the channel count? It was like over 600.
It was six or seven. I mean, we were maxing out like I think 2 Pro Tools rigs. So
to give some reference, I mean that's probably 4 or 5 times as many channels as we would normally be mixing.
Yeah, and when we're normally mixing 120 to 150 channels of stereo element, that's already a lot, because we kind of we've always liked these sort of dense walls of sound and these sort of lots of elements going on. And the way I tend to work is I tend to sort of I put lots and lots and lots of things in, and my mix process is actually a process of taking things out, just figuring out like what isn't necessary. But I tend to overload and put too much in and then pare out, and so yeah, that definitely turned into a bit of a headache for him. I mean, the the poor computer was on its knees, I think, at the end of that. That was what the goal we set ourselves, so we had to do it.
Stephen, I know you're putting together a little demo for us where you're going to show.
Yes.
Actually, break it down for us. What are you going to be showing us up here? In this
So what I'm going to show you next, coming up, is basically a sort of breakdown of what the environment in which I work, which basically I work in a piece of software called Nuendo that it literally has all of the elements in it, have all of the sounds that I work with, and I'll sort of take you on a little guided tour through Lobus theme, what that's built up of, because there's, you'll hear it as just one thing that plays, but it's built up of, nearly 100 and something elements. So I'll sort of give a little rundown of like what goes into making one of those tick.
Awesome. All right, let's take a look.
What I'm going to do is take you through a guided tour to a typical Apex module and to what it looks like when I put it together. This is the software that I work in, is a thing called Nuendo. It's something I've worked with for sort of coming on 15, 20 years now, in various guises. Before I was working with a version of it called Cubase, but now I use Nuendo for the multi-channel capabilities now. So basically what you're seeing here is where I end up with all the final elements that go out to mix for a theme. And this is Lobus theme. This is the session as I left it, and that went to mix and then went into the game. So the way I work is I have a whole stack of sounds. There's probably it's coming on for 1,000 tracks in this template. Everything is preloaded, so I can find any sound that I want. So if I want a flute sound, I can just go, let's find. I have a keyboard here, you can't see. And, if I want strings, I can just, So, literally, a big percussion, or this one is not hooked up. Oh, there we go. So basically there is, instant ability to sort of go towards any kinds of sounds we want to try out and any musical ideas, and I can quickly sketch up ideas and send them to Erik and get his feedback on them. And so Lobus theme, let me find a piano quickly. So Lobus theme originally came from, looking at the sort of South American influences, and kind of even looking back a bit before that. I mean, there was a couple of places I was listening to a Brazilian guitarist named Guinga, who's someone who should definitely be better known in the USA. He's really a phenomenal musician. He's very well known in Brazil. Has this sort of almost silky nylon string guitar sound that he plays with, and this very sort of lazy, relaxed kind of sound. So I was kind of playing around with this tune. This was something I had him kicking around my head for a little while. So, often a really good thing if you're writing a tune is if you come up with a little hook. If you just repeat it, going down a step or up a step. So that became Lobus theme as something that I kind of was drawn to. I thought it sort of played nicely to that part of her character. So the very first thing I did was sent that to Tom Straley, who's a brilliant guitarist that I know very well. And you've heard him on dozens of records, everything from Justin Bieber to tons of soundtrack work. Anyhow, I sent him that little sketch. I literally just jotted it down on a piece of paper and said, what do you make of this? And he quite quickly sent me back this. So I sent that to Erik and was like, what do you think of this? And he really liked it. And so the next thing we wanted to do was look into the other side of it, the sort of the kind of urban, almost like a trap beat kind of thing. So the basis of that I always knew was going to be the bass, and some kind of really fat, low end element that's sort of really prominent in the track. And so. And I also knew I wanted it to be quite energetic, because I sort of knew this was going to become the drop section, and I often work like that. I often sort of figure out the drop part and then almost work back from there. So, this is bass sound, which is, I think from Diva or different, from a plug-in synth of some kind. And so the next thing I start doing is I start just layering. I start throwing elements in and trying things out. And it's really, it can be from a multitude of different places and sounds, but I'm just trying to start to get it feeling like what I want it to feel like. So that's, a good place is always a kick. And the thing with that kick is it's quite high. Usually you end up with a kick sound that's much lower and sort of, a low thump. But actually this time I knew I wanted something that was going to sort of live above that bass line, because you try to sort of pick elements that aren't going to fight each other but are going to complement each other. So and then I started building up the snare parts, just giving it a and then maybe a bit of hi-hat. Some little rhythmic elements, and I'll play with these, I'll filter them, put plugins on them, that's got, just a bit of EQ, and then a little bit of, I started looking through a lot of Brazilian elements, so, kind of Brazilian shakers, and making almost like little loops out of them, and sort of, building those in, and just moving them around and trying to get a feel going. So, let's add in the snaps and the claps as well, and just with a few elements added, that starts to feel like music, that starts to feel like a beat. So, one of the things I'll often do next after that is, let me just bring in some of the other percussion, is, I'll build up a sort of a percussive map. I usually come to the big percussion later. I'll usually try and get the sort of the melodic and the rest of the track put together first. So the next thing I think I went to was these sort of little ARP things, so little synth elements that are rhythmic but sort of give you just a sense of, kind of, modern production. So you don't want something, I want modern production elements in almost everything to do with Apex. You never want it to sound too old, even if you're using, sort of older traditional instruments or, strings or something like that. The core of it is always electronic. So, I might have a sound like this. And this sound is like, if I take it out, shimmery. I've got a boatload of reverb on that. In fact, it's all reverb. So which is nice, because it gives you a sort of it gives you a backdrop almost to work with. So if I take it off, you'll hear the sound quite different. Add in a few more of these elements. Sound good. And then, I'll usually start to sort of find rhythmic guitar elements. So I have these cavaquinhos, which I've actually then chopped up, and, kind of, well, you'll hear it's sort of, there's little loops, and I built, I probably had just one, and I built sort of almost harmonies out of them. So just by having different notes and triggering them, almost like loops. And it just gives you a rhythmic backdrop, which is cool. And then a lot of what we do on Apex it involves a lot of guitar elements, but that are sort of almost leaning into, the slightly shoegazy, ambient guitar world. And what I'm using these for a lot of the time is sort of, kind of in place of what you might use if you were doing an orchestral track. Might be string elements, or you're just trying to give weight to it. And I'm, a lot of the time I'm looking for, this big sort of almost symphonic sound, but without actually using anything orchestral. So you get this weight to it, and a lot of the time in surround we'll spread these around you. So some of that might be in the rear speakers, and some of it might be in the side speakers. And I added a bit of strings in the Lobos Law trailer. We had a lot of strings, so as you're playing off the same elements and these little stealthy things. I knew also wanted something about her to be very sort of almost like classy and have this sort of, I mean, I don't want to say ethereal, but it's almost, there's this sort of very, above it all thing with her that I find, which I think is really cool. And, it's so sort of stylish. And this sound is like, there's this little guitar called a charango. And what I did with this was ran it through a granular synth plugin, which chops up the audio and reorders it into sort of completely not the audio that it was in, and then put like delays and effects on it, and you can sort of, with these tiny little grains, you can get this sort of shimmery sound that sort of, you'll hear it on the top. Get that little shimmer on the top. I took it out. It adds a lot. And maybe various synth elements. Big synth pads and stuff like that. And then another thing is, we wanted there's often a lot of low sort of cinematic kind of percussion. So, I was trying to be sort of region specific and go to South America, and there's these fantastic things called bombos, which are, I think Argentinian originally, but they exist all over South America. And so I have these terrific ones that Alan Myerson recorded, I think at Warner Brothers, that are just huge sounding, particularly on the drop sequence. That was just adding a bit of low weight, but here you'll hear. Just gives you, and to that I might add some big toms, surdos and stuff like that, so sort of slight skip into the downbeat there, which sort of just adds a bit more feel to it. Various other low percussion, that's also some, a little bit of Brazilian flair on the surdos. Oh, yeah. Also, I'll often use a lot of almost like sound design elements, and this will play into the sound design that Erik and his team are doing. We often do this on the character select module. We'll often do it on the drop. So, for example, if I add all of this in, you'll now hear there's a big swell into where it kicks off. Go ahead, loop. There we go. There we go. So, and then there's the melodic elements. So we'll add in the, I had these on the drop sequence, I have this electric guitar. It's actually made up of 3 different layers, and I've sort of slightly delayed them against each other. You'll see one is slightly delayed, this top one. And the nice effect of that is it sort of gives you this kind of wall of sound thing, as opposed to just being one sound, it's a layered thing. So, and last but not least, we have the Apex lead that everyone now knows very well. This sound. So this is a synth patch, which I've now had to make sure I saved. I think one time I nearly lost this patch. So that makes an appearance pretty much in every Apex module in some guise. But I've actually been trying to find interesting ways of using it, which are sort of more subtle recently, rather than just going straight to the 4 notes. And so this one, I've verbed it out, and it's just doing this top line thing. And I think around sort of at the end of the drop, it does go to the. So you can always you can play a sort of Where's Waldo game with any Apex module, see if you can find it. It's usually subtly in there. Sometimes it's very subtle, like you'd be lucky if you can hear it, and then sometimes it's loud and proud. So just depending on our mood that week, really. So yeah, so let's go from the top. This is Loba's theme. Let's show the mix. So I'll balance all the elements in here, and then usually put some plugins on the master. This is just to increase the dynamic range, just so in game we want it to be, we want it to be pretty hot. And then I pass all this to Steve Janowick to mix, and he does his own mix in 7.1 of that, and that's what goes into game. And that is Loba.
Before we leave, we got one more segment. We're going to take a look at some of our favorite community art. Stay tuned for that.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Alex from the community team. I'm joined today by the fabulous Tom and Ashley from our writers team. And this is our community segment. So today we're actually going to be focusing on this really incredible community-led initiative that kind of just popped up out of nowhere called the 31 Days of Apex. It is a Twitter account and a hashtag that you can follow, but it's essentially run by Steffi Max and Soro Trax, who are just two amazing artists within the Apex community that started this program, and we have just been loving seeing some of the art that's come out of it, and we're going to share some of that and some of our favorites with you guys today. So without further ado, we'll go to our first piece, which is for the prompt Mercy, and I think I should take a step back and just explain that the 31 Days of Apex, it's a new prompt every day that's just a single word that players and artists really will draw specific things around that is their interpretation of that word. So this was Mercy. The Mercy piece. I love it because Octane and Lifeline are adorable together.
They really are. And like, it's very funny. When I was actually first joining the team, actually right before I joined the team, I feel like I remember this happening. Tell me if you remember this, Tom. I sent you an email, like there was a question about Octane and Lifeline. I'm like, I feel like they would do this for these reasons. And I like outlined exactly why I thought that. And you're like, what? So I've been really attached.
Memory of Ashley is that email. And like, she just got, I mean, we just said they were friends. We didn't go into their backstory at all. And she got their friendship and their dynamic immediately. And so that was
fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. Yay. I'm really attached to them, and I saw this one and I just loved it. And I also like every once in a while, for a little while, I would like poke my head over at Tom's desk and be like, "Can we do something with Octane, like riding Doc around like he's like a cat on a Roomba?" And so this like kind of got there. So I'm like, yes, so cute.
I love it.
I love it so much.
Our next piece is actually a video piece, but I just thought that this was really unique interpretation of the prompt family, because, you know, generally with like fan art things, usually it's just specifically drawings, whereas this was not only a video, but also some writing, which I thought was really, really cool. So I
love this one.
Yeah, this is really amazing because it's like you said, a lot of them, you know, we all expected to see the pictures, but we didn't expect to see words. And should we talk about this now, Alex? The whole writing thing, like so many people wrote passages and short stories and stuff, and it really blew us away. Like I can't even tell you, as writers, to see people be inspired to write themselves, it was unbelievable.
It's incredible. Yeah, absolutely. Really, really good work with that one. This next one I think was a favorite of Ashley's, which I do like this one a lot. I think for me, any instance, because Loba is such like a strong, fiery character, it's nice sometimes to also see her other side of needing help, which I don't think we see very often.
Yeah, because she purposefully makes it seem like she never needs help and she's always totally in control. And what I really like about this one is that's obviously Bangalore helping her. Mm-hmm. And this is something they started off extremely antagonistic at the beginning of season 5, and now they're starting to like develop an understanding and a friendship. So this seems like you could have pulled this directly out of the game. Like I feel like this is a scene that would happen in the game. So I just love it, and it's so subtle too. It's just so nice.
I totally agree. This one, I mean, I don't like to play favorites, but this was the first piece that I saw for 31 Days of Apex. And I think I actually squealed because of how adorable this one is. Just thinking about like ferocious baby Watson teaching timetables to her Nessie plushies. I mean, oh my God.
It's so good. And this artist is incredible. We love everything they do. Mm-hmm. It was actually, I believe this is the same person who drew the Octane and his bunny art based on Tom's tweets. We had designers coming over to our desk and being like, have you seen this art? We're like, of course we've seen this art. So like, just, yeah. And like the Bangalore stuff they've done and this, it's just like, oh, it's all so wonderful. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I have such a soft spot in my heart for this one because, same as you, Alex, this was the first time I noticed the 31 Days of Apex hashtag, and I had no idea what it was, and it led me to the account. And when I realized what was happening, and I'm going to cry even telling the story, when I realized what was happening and what the fans were doing, it just it was overwhelming.
Yeah. It's really incredible when you see stuff like this just manifest itself out of the community on their own. It's pretty remarkable. For sure.
So cute. Is that her dad in the background? Sorry. Is that her dad? That is her dad. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Super cute.
Oh, no! Oh, no!
I mean, I had to include this one. I didn't realize, I feel like there's something in there from the writer's team that I'm unaware of with this one, but I loved it because it's clearly Mrs. Nesbit, which is just so funny to me, and I just love it.
This has layers, man. There's layers to this piece of art because now the community knows like just how kind of messed up he is, like to what extent and why. So this is perfect for him. I love I do remember right before Revenant came out, I looked at Tom and I'm like, the internet hungers. It hungers for a head for its flower crown. Because I knew there was going to be like Wooby Revenant stuff. And like this hits it just right to where I'm like, that is hysterical.
Yep.
But it's like absolutely Wooby Revenant.
Yep.
And you know the story behind this one, right?
I don't.
So Manny being Manny, who is, I love the pieces, but he likes to like stir the pot a bit. He basically tried to come up with he tweeted out the idea that Revenant actually loves tea and has tea parties and everything for the sole purpose of getting fan art, just to like torture me with it. So like he sent this whole series of tweets out about Revenant's tea parties, and I was like, so yeah, this is Manny's plot to like.
Oh my.
Manny is truly a master troll.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. So there's so much about this piece that I love. I think the style is incredible. I love the idea of Gibraltar enjoying a soothing hot beverage as the world just implodes around him. I think that's very on brand for him. And I love this piece. Yeah, this one's fantastic.
This is definitely, and I mean, like, that's Gibby's whole vibe. He's like a calm in the Storm is more Watson's shtick, but like Gibby's like that rock that everybody can go back to, and like there's a steady presence there.
I totally agree.
And I love everything about the composition of this is amazing. Like the angry faces in the foreground and like the color. I love the color contrast and like the comic book aesthetic. It's so cool.
Yeah, this one's really great.
So much fun.
This one, I like this one because I've noticed that this artist is kind of like framing up all of their pieces in the same way. But this one was really interesting to me specifically just because you do see like the original scientist face and then the juxtaposition to the caustic that we know.
Yeah. Fantastic.
This was all, and this was, I remember Tom, like this was this the backstory that Manny and Mo came up with? I can't remember.
Manny and Mo came up with this backstory,
Okay, because I remember there was kind of confusion over where to go with this character, and I really love where they landed with it. Though I also love people making the jokes of like, you have Nox canisters, like you're the worst at disguising yourself. But I love the serious take on it.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. This one, I mean,
I love
it.
I love it, but I'm gonna think.
Oh wait, Tom, are you a shipper?
I think I like this one because, with the season 3 CG piece, we really set up this relationship with them that is very like, I think it's love-hate ultimately. I know that they would both like to have it portrayed as just 100% hate, but I think at the end of the day, that they have each other's backs, and that's definitely represented here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what Apex is all about. It's like you can hate your squad mate, but like at the end of the day, you're gonna try and revive them. You know what I mean? Like you're a team, you're a family, and you're gonna get through this together. Like that's kind of the point of the game.
I totally agree.
Absolutely.
this one.
Oh, I love it.
This is the fan art equivalent to Ashley's email to me. No, because we haven't said much about Octane's family at all, and yet the artist just completely captured everything about. Like it's just fantastic. I mean, just how like rebellious he is, and the house just stodgy and like gray the house is, and it's just, I love it.
I really think it also speaks to just how incredibly perceptive and imaginative this community is, because you're right, we really haven't said a whole lot about Octane's family, and yet they've nailed it. Like they 100% have translated it perfectly, and it's just phenomenal.
I remember when I first said that like he was going to be rich, and like 8 people looked at me and they were like, "That guy's going to be rich?" Like,
but it works so well. Like I totally believe it. It's actually very funny. There's a Reddit thread from forever ago and now, like a whole 2 weeks ago or something, and it talks about, oh, people are asking like, is Octane dumb? Oh, because of the quest where he's like talking to Watson. They're like, is Octane like actually dumb? And I went and looked at it, and like people were really digging into his psyche and really like trying to understand him, and a lot of them like really nailed it. I'm like, God, that's amazing. You guys are really looking so deep into these characters. We love it.
Yep, they really are. I really like this one. I think, again, this speaks to the like camaraderie of Apex. It is your family, and I can't decide for me who I feel forced Wraith into this picture, if it was Pathfinder or Watson, because I totally think that is something either one of them would have done.
I think it might have been the combined efforts of both, because Wraith has said she has a soft spot for Pathfinder and Watson. So I think she'd be coaxed into doing exactly that.
If she knew it made them happy, I feel like she would do it.
Absolutely.
She's a dark and brooding person, but I don't think it's because she wants to be. She's like, that's my personality. She has no problem with people being happy. So I think she likes it when happy people are around her.
Totally. So I picked this one again because for me personally, this is like very selfish, but I love seeing the legends just like in their normal lives. I feel like we focus a lot on how their mentality and how they are in the arena, but people forget that the legends don't live in the arena. They have other lives that they carry out, and they listen to music and hang out and decompress. And I just think that this is such a beautiful take on Bangalore, who is, again, this very strong all the time personality, and it's nice to see her unwinding.
Yeah, and especially her, because she hasn't let on all that's going on with her, but she's been kind of stranded in the Outlands away from her family for over a decade. So she's got a lot on her mind at any given time. Mm-hmm. And I was just going to say, I would say, like, because in the game, obviously, it's just back-to-back fights, but in the lore of the game, I would say they spend most of their time not in the arena. So it is really interesting to see them in their, like, home environment.
Totally.
And I feel like one of the things we did in Broken Ghosts that, like, we set out intentionally to do was to kind of deepen her and make her not just the soldier, and show her a real personality, a real three-dimensional person there. And I think that this really captures something that, like, the contemplative Bangalore that we had at the end of Broken Ghost.
Yep, for sure.
I love her freckles.
Yeah.
Me too. It's a nice touch. And then to wrap it up, this really, really stunning Bloodhound piece. As a Bloodhound main, this just speaks to me. It makes me so happy. And I love the thought that maybe Bloodhound has Archer, of course, but that, they're constantly just surrounded by all animals, and all animals kind of like flock to them. So I just love this.
This is amazing. I love the composition on this one, because I don't want to say like you don't expect like stellar composition from fan art, because it's not true. We've obviously seen some amazing composition right here, but just seeing something so different was so cool when this came across my timeline. I just loved it. And it also I'm imagining like the emote where Bloodhound is like spinning through the air with all the birds surrounding them, and then this flashes to like 8 hours later when they're all chilling.
Totally. Yep. I totally get that as well. Cool. Well, guys, thank you for joining me on this as we adventure through just a very, very minute portion of the 31 days of Apex activation. If you haven't seen it already, I really, really highly going and checking it out for yourself. Again, it is at 31 Apex Days or hashtag 31 Days of Apex on Twitter. We are only halfway through July, so there is so much more content that could be created, and I have no doubt that it's all going to be really amazing. And then Tom and Ashley, as always, thank you guys for joining me. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, I love it.
Likewise, and we are going to throw it back to Jay.
Thanks, Alex. Well, that is our episode for this month. We hope you folks enjoyed it, especially our BTS interview with the audio team. It was really fun for us to do. And if you folks would like to see more of these, let us know, and let us know the kind of things you'd like us to go behind the scenes on to learn more about how we work here at Respawn and make Apex Legends. Now, before I let you go, don't forget, for those Twitch Prime members, link your accounts for the Pathfinder Swimming Buddy Twitch skin, available right now for a limited time. Our Summer of Plunder sale is off to the races and happening, so make sure to check out the game for the bundles and sales that we have available. And last but not least, make sure to watch the ALGS Summer Circuit Super Regionals number 3 happening this weekend on twitch.tv/playapex and also youtube.com/playapexcompete. This was a pleasure. Please stay safe out there, and we'll see you next month.